My brother said I wasn't wife material, so I did this at my wedding. My name is Ava Palmer, and if you had told me 3 years ago that the most painful thing anyone would say to me wouldn't come from an enemy or an ex, but from my own brother, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's exactly what happened. I was 26. My brother Evan was 29. We were at a family barbecue in our parents' backyard. Sun shining, kids playing, the usual blend of laughter and low-key stress. The grill was smoking, and someone had brought up relationships, which always turns into a minefield when you're the only unmarried woman over 25. Evan had just broken up with his latest girlfriend, a yoga instructor with an Instagram following and a 3-week relationship shelf life. My mom was already asking when he'd get back out there. My aunt threw me a pointed look and said, "Ava's still waiting for the right one, aren't you?" I smiled. Or maybe I just don't want to settle for the wrong one. I meant it. I had goals, a demanding job in advertising, a small apartment that I paid for on my own, a future I was building one late night and coffee-stained pitch deck at a time. I wasn't against love, I just wasn't desperate for it. But that's when Evan, beer in hand, standing next to his grill like some backyard prophet, chuckled and said, just loud enough for the others to hear, "Let's be honest, Ava's not really wife material." I laughed at first. I thought it was a joke. But the way he said it, offhand, dismissive, and with zero irony, made my stomach turn. I turned to him and asked, "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged like it was obvious. "I mean, you're always working, you're intense. Guys like girls who are a little softer, less in control all the time." There were a few awkward laughs. My cousin tried to change the subject. My mom gave me that "don't make a scene" glance, but it was already done. That sentence had landed, and I could feel it sinking into my skin. Not wife material. The phrase haunted me more than I wanted to admit. Not because I believed it, but because it came from Evan. Evan, who I grew up sharing Pop-Tarts and Nintendo controllers with. Evan, who used to help me sneak out to high school parties and cover for me when I came home late. Evan, who used to tell me I was the smartest girl he knew. That Evan now saw me as, what? Too successful? Too ambitious? Too opinionated? Too much? It wasn't just that he said it. It was that no one really pushed back. Not my mom, not my dad, not the aunts and uncles who were standing there. No one pulled him aside and said, "Hey, that was cruel." They all just let it float in the air like smoke from the barbecue. Later that night, I asked my mom if she thought Evan meant it. She sighed, rinsing off wine glasses in the kitchen, and said, "Your brother just wants the best for you." That wasn't an answer, and I started to realize that maybe, in their eyes, I was too much, too independent, too loud, too assertive, not soft, not sweet, not chosen. That night, I went home and stared at myself in the mirror for way too long, not picking apart my makeup or my outfit, but everything else, my choices, my goals, my fire. I hated that one comment made me question those things, but it did. Over the next few weeks, Evan acted like nothing happened. He'd text me memes, tag me in stupid videos, invite me to hang out with his friends. I responded politely but distantly. Something had cracked between us, and I didn't know how to patch it. I threw myself into work, got promoted, landed a national campaign, dated here and there, but nothing serious. Every time something did click with someone, I'd hear that voice in the back of my head. Not wife material. That voice became a ghost, showing up in dressing rooms, in dating app bios, in dinner conversations where I found myself dimming just a little, toning myself down so I wouldn't seem intimidating. And then I met Ryan. He was nothing like the other guys. He didn't flinch at my intensity. He leaned in. When I told him about my schedule, he didn't say, "That's a lot." He asked how he could support it. When I said I didn't want kids right away, he nodded and said, "Good. Let's build something solid first." He saw me. Not just the surface, me. We dated for a year and a half before he proposed. The night I called my family to tell them, my mom cried, my dad congratulated us. And Evan? Evan said, "Wow, didn't think you were the marrying type." It wasn't a joke. It wasn't sarcastic. It was genuine disbelief. And that was when I knew this wasn't just about a dumb comment at a barbecue. This was about how they saw me, about how they never fully accepted that I could have everything: a career, a voice, a love, and still be worthy of softness, of partnership, of celebration. I hung up the phone that night and looked at Ryan. He asked, "Everything okay?" And I told him the truth. I told him what Evan said back then. I told him how much it had hurt. I told him I wanted our wedding to be a celebration, not just of our love, but of everything I had fought to believe about myself again. He held my hand, looked me in the eye, and said, "Then let's make it your moment." And that's exactly what I did. Ryan came into my life when I least expected it, right after I had sworn off dating apps for good. We met at a professional networking event in Midtown. It was one of those Wednesday night things where everyone wore slightly too tight blazers and pretended to care about each other's pitch decks. I was there representing my firm, running on 2 hours of sleep and iced coffee, just trying to survive long enough to snag a free slider and bounce. Ryan, apparently, was dragged there by a friend and had been lurking by the snack table for 20 minutes before I walked up. "Are these sliders worth pretending to network for?" I asked, balancing a drink in one hand and my dignity in the other. He smiled and said, "They're not, but you just made them slightly better." Cheesy, but charming. I didn't roll my eyes. I stayed. We talked for 30 minutes before realizing we hadn't exchanged business cards or even job titles. It was the first time in years I met someone who saw me before trying to size me up. He wasn't intimidated by my title. He didn't flinch when I said I wanted to run my own creative agency someday. He asked questions. He listened. And when I said I didn't want to sacrifice myself to fit into someone else's idea of what a partner should be, he just nodded. "I wouldn't want you to," he said. "That would ruin the whole point." That night, I walked away with more than a half-decent slider. I walked away thinking, maybe I'm not too much. Maybe I've just been around people who expected too little. Our relationship wasn't a fairy tale. It was real. We had arguments, late nights, tough conversations about money, time, and fear. But never once did I feel like I had to shrink myself. He never used my ambition as a weapon. He celebrated it. While Ryan and I were growing stronger, Evan was spiraling quietly. His third relationship that year ended when his girlfriend left him mid-vacation in Aruba. She posted a breakup announcement on Instagram before he was even through airport security. My mom told me over brunch, like it was a national tragedy. "Poor Evan," she said, stirring her coffee. "He just hasn't found the right one." I bit my tongue. Ryan and I moved in together after a year. It wasn't even a dramatic conversation. I was practically living at his place anyway, and one Sunday morning while making pancakes, he said, "I moved the rest of your shampoo into the shower. That counts as cohabitating, right?" That's the kind of man he is. Thoughtful, subtle, intentional. He proposed on a rooftop during golden hour. No crowd, no spectacle. Just the city, a small velvet box, and a trembling smile. I said yes before he even finished the question. Telling my family was complicated. My mom was thrilled. She immediately asked about dresses and guest lists. My dad gave Ryan a handshake that was just slightly too long. But Evan? He paused, blinked, and said, "Didn't think you were the marrying type." There it was again. That condescension. That disbelief. It didn't sting the way it used to. It made me sad. Sad that he couldn't see beyond the version of me he built in his head. Sad that someone who shared my childhood, my home, my family, still couldn't understand who I had become. The closer we got to the wedding, the more obvious the cracks became. Evan offered to help plan the bachelor party. Ryan politely declined. Evan made jokes, always wrapped in, "I'm just kidding," about me wearing the pants in the relationship. About me writing my own vows because I couldn't let a man speak first. About Ryan marrying up. I kept my distance. I didn't fight. I didn't correct him. Because I was saving all of it for one moment. See, there's something you learn when you've spent your life proving yourself to people who think they already know you. Timing is everything. You don't waste your breath defending your worth. You wait until the room is full, until the spotlight is warm, until there's no exit door nearby. And then you speak. Ryan and I planned every detail of the wedding together. It was elegant, but not over the top. A garden venue outside the city, string lights, a live jazz quartet, a custom cocktail menu that included the red flag and the ring. My family came dressed to impress. Evan brought a new date, some model/fitness coach who called me Anna the entire night. He made a toast at the rehearsal dinner that was mostly about himself. My mom smiled politely. Ryan shot me a look. "Let him have his moment," I whispered. "Mine's tomorrow." And when the day came, it was beautiful. The ceremony was flawless. The sun peeked through the trees like it had been waiting for us. I wore a dress that made no compromises. Bold, structured, modern. I looked like exactly who I was. During the reception, we did the usual rounds. The cake, the first dance, the speeches. Ryan's best man gave a heartfelt toast that had people laughing and tearing up. My maid of honor crushed hers. Funny, sincere, the kind of speech you remember. And then, it was my turn. I took the mic. People clinked their glasses, expecting a soft thank you. A blushing bride moment. I gave them something else. "Before I thank everyone for being here," I said, "I want to talk about something someone once said to me." I turned my head, just slightly, toward Evan. A few years ago, someone I loved told another man that I wasn't wife material, that I was too much, too ambitious, too independent, that I wasn't soft enough, or quiet enough, or passive enough to be the kind of woman worth marrying. The room fell silent. Forks froze mid-bite. Evan's smile disappeared. "I carried that comment for years," I continued, "not because I believed it, but because it came from someone who should have known better, someone who grew up with me, someone who watched me become exactly who I was meant to be." I glanced at Ryan. And then I met a man who didn't ask me to shrink, who didn't need me to soften, to quiet down, or to change. A man who said, "Don't let anyone dim you. I'll wear sunglasses if I have to." Laughter. Nervous, but real. I closed with this. So to anyone here who's ever been told they're not enough, or maybe too much, this day is for you too, because the only person who gets to define your worth is you. And the right people, they'll never try to cut you down just to feel taller. Applause. A standing ovation, actually. But the best part? I didn't look back at Evan. I didn't need to. After my speech at the engagement dinner, I could feel something shift, but not in the way I hoped. Evan didn't pull back. He didn't apologize. He doubled down. He started showing up to wedding planning events uninvited, making passive-aggressive comments under the guise of brotherly teasing, offering opinions no one asked for. At the cake tasting, let me guess, something bitter, right? Matches the bride. When Ryan suggested switching one of the seating arrangements to help elderly guests, Evan smirked and said, "You sure you're not already whipped, bro?" He thought he was being funny, that I could take it, that he was still the same big brother with a sarcastic edge, and I was just being sensitive. But he didn't understand something fundamental. This wasn't about a few jokes. This was about a pattern. A lifetime of being seen as too much by the people who should have been proud of me. And I wasn't going to confront it with yelling or drama. I was going to answer it with poise, with precision, with a message no one in the room could misinterpret. That's when I reached out to Claire. Claire was Evan's ex-girlfriend, the only one I ever genuinely liked. They dated for almost 2 years when we were in our mid-20s, and everyone, including me, thought she might be the one. Until she wasn't. Evan dumped her after she got into a competitive grad program, said she was getting too intense. He ghosted her for a week, then sent one final text that read, "I'm not cut out for a power couple." Charming, right? I hadn't spoken to her in years, but a friend told me Claire had recently moved back to the city and was building a name for herself, giving TEDx-style talks about female leadership, resilience, and owning your identity. She spoke at universities, corporations, even women's retreats. So I called her. I didn't expect her to say yes, but she did, without hesitation. We met for coffee, and I told her the whole story. The comment Evan made, the way it lingered. The way I wanted to reclaim the narrative, not just for me, but for every woman told she was too much to be loved. Claire listened, and then said, "I'd be honored to speak, not to get revenge, but to shine a light." That was exactly what I needed. I didn't tell anyone, not even Ryan. The speech would be a surprise addition to the reception, framed as a special guest host from a close friend of the bride. Technically true, emotionally strategic. The day before the wedding, Evan showed up to the rehearsal in his usual form. Loud, confident, mildly intoxicated. He brought a new girlfriend, model, influencer, and clearly unaware of any family dynamics. She called me Amy twice and asked if there'd be gluten-free champagne. Evan made his presence known at every turn. "Make sure to get my good side in the photos. Hope you've got backup vows in case Ava edits them for grammar. Don't worry, I'll keep this crowd entertained." It was exhausting, but I kept smiling, because I knew what was coming. The morning of the wedding was crisp and bright, sunlight filtering through the tall oaks that surrounded the garden venue. I had never felt calmer. Ryan and I shared a private first look before the ceremony, and when he turned and saw me, he grinned and said, "You look like someone about to deliver a keynote speech, and maybe also get married." I laughed. In that order. The ceremony went off flawlessly. Guests wiped tears. Vows were exchanged. A string quartet played as we walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, husband and wife. Cocktail hour passed in a happy blur, champagne, laughter, tiny hors d'oeuvres shaped like flowers. Evan was loud, of course. At one point, I heard him telling a group of cousins, "Ryan doesn't know what he's in for." Ryan winked at me from across the lawn. He knew better than anyone. I had always been clear about who I was. Dinner was served, speeches began. Ryan's best man was heartfelt. My maid of honor had everyone laughing. Then my dad stood up and gave the kind of emotional, wandering speech only dads can give, ending with, "To my daughter, who always knew exactly who she was, even when the rest of us didn't." That moment made my throat tighten. Then, just before dessert, the coordinator handed the mic to me. I stood and smiled. "Thank you all for being here tonight. I know weddings are supposed to be about love, and they are. But they're also about reflection, about standing in the life you've built, and the people who helped shape it." I paused, letting my eyes move across the room, briefly, just briefly, landing on Evan. Tonight, I want to introduce someone who understands exactly what it means to stand in that truth. Someone whose words inspired me more than she probably knows. Please welcome a close friend, Claire Reynolds. There was polite applause. Evan looked like someone had slapped him in the back of the head with a feather. His expression flickered. Recognition, confusion, tension. Claire took the mic in a sleek black jumpsuit and heels that didn't apologize for being tall. She smiled graciously, and she began. Claire took the mic without hesitation. She didn't scan her notes, didn't fumble. She stood in the center of the reception tent like she belonged there. Because she did. There was no introduction, just a gentle clearing of the throat before she spoke. "I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, not originally. But Ava reached out a few months ago, and I didn't hesitate to say yes. Because there are very few women in this world who remind you, just by the way they exist, that you are allowed to be your full self." I felt my eyes sting. Ryan reached for my hand. Ava doesn't shrink to fit a room. She expands it. She doesn't ask permission to be smart, bold, or direct. And the most powerful thing about her is, She makes space for others to do the same. She inspired me when we barely knew each other, and she inspired me again when she told me what this night meant to her, not just because she found love, but because she finally stopped questioning whether she was worthy of it. The room was hushed. Everyone was leaning in now. My aunt, my coworkers, my mom, even the servers. You see, a few years ago, someone told Ava she wasn't wife material. Claire paused just long enough to let that phrase echo. And the worst part? It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't an ex. It wasn't some internet troll. It was her own brother. Gasps. Audible gasps. A few guests turned their heads toward Evan. He sat frozen, trying to force a smirk. But it didn't land. His girlfriend looked stunned. Claire's voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. She wasn't angry. She was surgical. That man, who should have protected her, celebrated her, lifted her up, looked her in the eye and decided that her confidence made her undesirable, that her standards made her difficult, that her independence made her unlovable. Every woman in the room sat still, breath held. Every man sat taller, or sank a little lower. Claire looked straight ahead now, not at Evan, just through him. That kind of thinking doesn't just damage a relationship, it distorts it. It convinces strong women to second-guess their strength. It teaches daughters and sisters that they have to trade in pieces of themselves for affection. It hands out shame wrapped as advice. She let that hang for a beat. But Ava didn't let it destroy her. She didn't shrink. She didn't try to prove anything to anyone. She kept being herself. And in doing that, she found the kind of love most people only talk about. Applause started low, then built. But Claire wasn't finished. And here's the irony. The very traits her brother mocked, her clarity, her ambition, her fearlessness, those are the exact reasons she was the first woman I thought of when I started my own company, when I was told I wasn't wife material, when I was ghosted by someone who said my dreams were too big to fit next to his. His name, by the way, was Evan. Now there was no mistaking it. All subtlety gone. Head swiveled toward Evan, his face flushed deep red. His arms were crossed tight across his chest, like he was bracing for a punch. He tried to laugh, but no sound came. Evan, if you're listening, and I know you are, this isn't revenge. This is recognition. You were wrong. You were wrong about me. You were wrong about her. And you were wrong about what it means to be loved. Dead silence. Claire turned back to the room. To every woman who's ever been told she was too much, this is your reminder. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are only hard to manipulate. And if that makes you unrecognizable to small men, good. You weren't built to fit in their view. Now the applause returned, but louder, stronger, rising. Some stood. Claire stepped back, gave me a small nod, and returned the mic to the DJ. She walked straight past Evan, eyes ahead, chin high. He didn't even look at her. And I stood up and clapped, slowly, deliberately. Ryan joined me. Then the rest of the room followed, not because it was polite, but because something had just been corrected. A weight had shifted. Later that night, as the reception continued and the music picked back up, I caught Evan slipping out through the side of the tent. His girlfriend trailed behind him, looking dazed and whispering something I couldn't hear. He never said goodbye, and that was fine with me, because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed him anything. The morning after the wedding, the garden was quiet. Petals from the floral arch still scattered the lawn. The chairs had been cleared, the tables folded away. Only the scent of roses and the soft breeze remained, along with the silence that follows when everything has been said. Ryan and I sat on the terrace of the guest house, sipping coffee. I still had my hair pinned back from the night before, loose curls falling over one shoulder. My wedding dress was folded inside a garment bag, but I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was thinking about what it felt like to finally breathe. Because for years, I didn't realize how much space I'd given other people inside my head, especially Evan. Not that I obsessed over him, but his voice, his judgment, was always there, echoing faintly behind my choices. Every confident move I made was followed by second guessing. Every success came with a whisper. Are you being too much? That whisper was gone now. Claire had silenced it, not by humiliating him, but by naming the truth out loud, in front of everyone. That speech wasn't about vengeance, it was about vindication, and the response afterward confirmed it. Guests came up to me one by one, not to talk about the flowers or the food, but to tell me what Claire's words had meant to them, what I had meant to them, how it changed the way they saw themselves, or their daughters, or their wives. That speech hit me in my chest. I've never seen someone say so much with so much grace. It's so rare to see someone stand in their power like that and still be so calm. It wasn't that they thought I gave the speech. It was that they knew, deep down, that it had been for me, because I had earned it, not just through success or love or growth, but by enduring, by refusing to become smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Ryan reached over and took my hand. You good? He asked softly. I smiled. Better than good. He leaned over and kissed the side of my head. Just so you know, when Claire said you make space for others to rise, that's exactly how I feel with you. I let out a quiet breath, not because I was relieved, because I was seen. Later that afternoon, I got a text from my mom, just a single line. You really shocked him. I stared at the screen for a second, then typed back. That wasn't about shocking anyone. That was about finally telling the truth. She didn't respond, but she read it. That was enough. I didn't expect Evan to call, and he didn't. Not that day, not that week, not even after the wedding photos went up online. But I did hear from Claire. She emailed me 2 days later and attached a photo someone had taken during the reception. Just the two of us, standing side by side with champagne flutes, both smiling, both at peace. Her message read, You didn't just get married, you shifted something. Thank you for letting me be part of that. Also, your dress was a cultural moment. I laughed out loud. Then I cried. Then I printed the photo and pinned it to my bulletin board at work. It wasn't just a reminder of the day I got married. It was a reminder of the day I reclaimed my story. A few weeks later, Evan's girlfriend posted a solo photo from the wedding with a caption that felt almost like a haiku. Not all speeches are toasts. Some are mirrors. Some are storms. It got over 200 likes and a few fire emojis. I didn't engage. Some things don't require commentary. Ryan and I returned from our honeymoon to a new apartment and 1,000 unopened wedding cards. We opened them slowly, one at a time. There were sweet notes, cash gifts, thoughtful words, and even a handwritten letter from my dad. No return address, just tucked into a plain white envelope with my name. Ava, I watched your wedding with quiet admiration. I stayed silent years ago when I should have spoken up for you. I didn't understand how much strength it takes to stay yourself in a world that constantly asks women to be less. I saw you clearly that night. I saw your grace, your clarity, your joy, and I realized I've never been more proud to call you my daughter. Love, Dad. I cried when I read that, not because I needed it to heal, but because it meant he finally saw me as I am. Not despite the strength, but because of it. I don't know if Evan will ever reach that same place. I don't know if he can. And honestly, that's not my burden anymore, because I'm not living for his understanding. I'm living for the woman I fought to become, the one who doesn't apologize for her volume, her vision, her presence, the one who found a partner who didn't just tolerate her fire, but loved her for it. And the next time someone says I'm not wife material, I won't flinch. I won't argue. I'll just smile, raise my glass, and think, you have no idea who you're talking to.